Hello there, I'm Koosh. This is going to be my very overdue PT tank guide for 7.0. I'm trying to make this guide more of a overview than like an actual deep dive, so I am going to be kind of jumping around on stuff and not covering every little specific line of text. But I will leave my Discord information down in the description box, so if you do have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out or leave a comment, and if it's something a little bit more specific, I will gladly answer. So I'm going to go over my ability tree. Not much has changed since my early 7.0 video thoughts, but just in case you missed that one, I'm going to go back over my choices. So for our 23 option, I have still been using counterattack, and then for a AoE heavy fight, I use target rich environment. I'm personally not a huge fan of heavy flamethrower. It's more just how my playstyle works. I interrupt it too much. I will say though, if you're watching this and you're unsure, heavy flamethrower does do more damage. But again, for me, more personal playstyle, I use counterattack and target rich environment for AoE heavy fights. For 27, so far this tier, I have not used Translocate at all. I like Manhunter a lot, just being able to pull in 2 different adds. An example of when you would use Friendly Grapple, when you're not just trying to kill your teammates for fun, is on Calpheus in the Dread Palace operation. For example, we had a healer pick up the crystal going into that final burn phase, and I grappled them. Yes, the grapple does root, but it can be cleansed. I believe Ray was on an operative, she grabbed the crystal, I pulled her, she cleansed herself, got out of there, easy peasy. For option number 39, I'm still using Contracted Defense. When the expansion first came out, I messed around with Heat Release and Payday. I personally just like Contracted Defense because it has the Heat Blast reduction, and it's just the Heat Blast that I am used to and know and love. For choice number 43, I pretty much just leave it on Mandalorian Iron and let it ride. I haven't had a situation where I needed to take a reactive missile. Stealth Scan I do take for fights like Encounter 2 and 3 of Duxon, where the team just needs some movement speed. 53, I'm still rocking Pyro Shield because as a PT, you take damage, you do damage. For 64, same thing, been rocking Reflective Armor, you take damage, you do damage. And for Hitman, I would use on fights like Isaac's where I'm going to be getting stunned a lot, but again, for the most part, just set this one, let it ride. So one small difference from my earlier video was when I was like, I'm just going to set hydraulics overrides, I'm never touching anything else. There has been a time where I have used Electro Dart, and that was red in Duxon. We had a Marauder in the group, so every time I would be using hydraulics, they could just pred, and it really wasn't the biggest deal. I liked having the Electro Dart because then I could have my hard stun and then my Carbonize to also stun, and it made managing the bulls a little bit easier. 99.9% of the fights in the game, I'm just using hydraulic overrides. So 73 is probably the only tier where I could see all 3 options at some point being like used. For fights like Brontis, I would use Efficient Suit. 1, it is another stun break, and then 2, it lets your grapple be 40 meters instead of 30 meters. And it's nice paired with Manhunter because then you have 2 charges. So in Brontis, because I am taking hydraulics, I don't have my Electro Dart, the 2 charges at 40 meters just gives me more options to mess with the orbs and keep them busy and not in the group. And again, for fights like Red in Nim Duxon, I would probably rock Enhanced Paralytics. Paralytics, words are hard. Right now, what you're looking at, all of these options, this is pretty much what I just set and let it ride, unless a specific occasion calls for me to swap that. We are going to talk about passives. The main thing we want to know as a Powertech tank is our Ion Gas Cylinder. When Ion Gas Cylinder deals damage, it will also shock the target for X additional energy damage over 6 seconds while the cylinder is active. This pairs very nicely with our Ion Overload. Dealing damage with Rocket Punch triggers Ion Gas Cylinder on the target, and dealing damage with Rail Shot triggers Ion Gas Cylinder on the target, and it also makes your Rail Shot a AoE ability now. These will both generate a high amount of threat. This isn't necessarily a passive, but I do want to mention because a lot of these abilities go hand in hand. Shielding an attack or triggering your ion gas cylinder generates a heat screen, increasing shield absorption by 1% for 20 seconds. Stacks up to 3 times. In addition, each time you build a heat screen or refresh your heat screen stacks, the active cooldown of Heat Blast is reduced by 1 second. What shield enhancers are: Rocket Punch and Rail Shot grant shield enhancers when activated, increasing shield chance by 1% for 15 seconds, stacks up to 3 times. So just by doing Rocket Punch and Rail Shot, we will get an additional 3% shield chance. I hope you're starting to see now how all of these wonderful things just start working together. The last piece of the PT puzzle: contracted defense. So we get an additional 3% shield by keeping up our shield enhancers. Then, with contracted defense, we can get up to 8% additional shield chance. Essentially how this works is when we use our Heat Blast, it allows Flame Sweep or Flame Burst to build an additional stack of shield up to 5 stacks. I know I just did a lot of word throwing at you, but don't worry. I'm going to show you how it all goes together. So what we're going to see here in action, when I hit my Rocket Punch, we're going to see Iron Gas Cylinder trigger with our Ion Overload and our shield enhancers, and we're going to get a heat screen. Yes, that's a lot. So, Rocket Punch. We got a heat screen, we got a shield enhancer, and our Ion Gas Cylinder procced, giving us that shock on the target. So one more time, we Rocket Punch. All of that wonderful stuff procs. Rail Shot will do the same thing. Oh, look at that. Rocket Punch, proc. Rail Shot, proc. And a Rapid Shot. Oh, it procced. So now, to get our contracted defense going, we're going to send that Heat Blast, and then every time we Flame Burst, we get a stack. Oh, Shield Enhancer is about to fall off. Going to Rocket Punch. Flame Burst, we got our 5th stack. So there's our additional 8%. The one thing that's very nice is when you do use another Heat Blast, it refreshes it. It does not reset. So it's very easy to keep up your 8% stacks. The only time that should fall off is if there's a long transitional period, and it's pretty easy to build back up. One thing I want to note, Rail Shot cannot be used on a target unless it's suffering from periodic damage. But what's nice about Rocket Punch is it'll proc your Ion Gas Cylinder, which will also shock the target, allowing you to use Rail Shot. So I try to always use Rocket Punch into Rail Shot. So Rocket Punch, there we go, it's shocked, then we can Rail Shot. Our Rapid Shot also has the chance to re-proc that. So right now you'll notice you can still Rail Shot because our shock has been proccing. Rocket Punch, but now we need to swap targets. We're going to go over here. Can't Rail Shot it. But if we do a couple Rapid Shots, say Rocket Punch is on cooldown, you can get your Rapid Shots to proc, then you can Rail Shot. Now I'm going to talk tacticals, legendary, and gear. In terms of tacticals, we have Superheated Fuel and Thermal Screen. Superheated Fuel, explosive fuel increases all flame attacks, critical chance by 100%. So, you are under explosive fuel, your flame attacks, 100% crit. We're under explosive fuel, crit, 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 crit. Look at those big ol' critties. For Thermal Screen, Heat Screen now stacks up to 6 times, and Heat Blast only consumes 3 stacks on use. Activating Energy Yield immediately generates 6 Heat Screens and finishes the cooldown of Heat Blast. So, let's see that in action real quick. Boom, boom. We have 3% additional absorb. I'm going to Heat Blast. You hit Energy Yield, you immediately go to 6. You can hit Heat Blast again really quick. And then you can build back up to 6. One thing to note is if you are not using Thermal Screen, when you use your Heat Blast, you will go to 0 heat screens, but still, with Thermal Screen, using Heat Blast only consumes 3, so you'll always be at 3. So you do get a little bit of extra absorb outside of your windows. So, for me personally, I use Superheated Fuel. In about every fight in this game, I use Explosive Fuel in my opener for the extra damage, more threat. I can't remember the last time I have used Thermal Screen. I have done all content, all timers in the game with Superheated Fuel. In terms of legendaries, I think our 4 options are Squad Leader Package, Shock Trooper Package, Super Commando package, and Specialist package. The two I use are the Super Commando package and the Specialist package. For Super Commando package, activating power yield, thermal yield, or energy yield grants a shield that absorbs a massive amount of damage, and that shield lasts up to 3 seconds. For a Specialist package, explosive fuel increases damage done by 20% while ion gas cylinder is being utilized, and increases damage reduction by 10% when ion gas cylinder is not being utilized. Because we're a shield tech and iron gas cylinder is being utilized, what this means is we do 20% more damage during our explosive fuel windows. I do want to compare these two real quick with the Shock Trooper package. Flaming Fist and Rocket Punch heat is reduced by 4. Flaming Fist, Magnetic Blast, and Heat Blast increase damage dealt by 10% for 15 seconds. Cannot occur more than once every 30 seconds. I believe I saw in the Theory Crafter Discord that overall, this one will allow you to do more damage. Because I'm always using explosive fuel in my opener, I just like having that extra damage boom right there. And then the other option is our Squad Leader package. This is the other quote-unquote tank legendary that will give you actual tank stats. And what this one does is whenever you take damage with Energy Shield, a weaker shield is applied to nearby allies for 3 seconds. But again, I'm going to be rocking Superheated Few Tactical, Super Commando package, and then the Specialist package. In terms of my gear, I am just using what the game gave me. All of the Powertech drops are Demolisher pieces. So all of my pieces, you'll see right here, are Demolisher pieces. For my earpiece, I use the Ricotta Bastion device to get more shield. Then for my relics, I use 1 non-clicky shield relic and then 1 non-clicky absorb relic. For my augments, I'm rocking 14 shield gold augs. For my color crystals, we are rocking the endurance crystals. Here are my defensive stats. My flat shield chance is 47.66. My flat shield absorption is 36.64. I do want to show what this is going to look like when we have all of our passives up. So our shield chance flat, 47.66. Let's build our shield enhancers and our contracted defense here. So with our shield enhancers up and our contracted defense built, we are going to be at 55.66%. So if you find yourself thinking, wow, I like that shield chance, but that absorb, only 39? Well, it's at 39 because right now we have 3 stacks of heat screens. So when we pop this, boom, 66. So as a power tech, when we use our heat blast, our shield absorption is increased. What this means is when a shield tech shields, they shield. I'm going to run you through my opener. This is the opener I use in basically every fight in the game. I want to cover briefly another passive that you're going to be noticing a lot playing shield tech. Direct damage attacks have a 50% chance to trigger Flame Engine, which finishes the cooldown on Searing Wave, Firestorm, or Heavy Flamethrower and increases their damage by 40%. And it also makes them free. So for my opener, I don't use Rising Phoenix because that has a chance to trigger your Firestorm, and then you can only use 1. So what I like to do instead is pop Hydraulics, Grapple. We run in with Explosive Fuel, and I do a Firestorm, Rocket Punch, Rail Shot while spamming my rockets, and then into our other proc Firestorm. So in practice, here we go. So for a opener for Flamethrower, it would be nice to be able to use a Flamethrower, Rocket Punch, Rail Shot, Flamethrower. I just don't think it's practical because when Flamethrower isn't procced, it's just a 3-second cast and it's kind of awkward and clunky. It just feels clunky to hit that run up and then you have to stand still for 2.7 seconds. And another thing that Jet Charge does that I didn't mention earlier is it allows your next 2 Flame Burst or Flame Sweep to be used with no heat. So what I'm thinking here is we're going to grapple into Jet Charge, Rocket Punch, Rail Shot, with Explosive Fuel and our Shoulder Cannon spam, and then into our Heavy Flamethrower. So let's do it. Important to note, you can't use rockets during Flamethrower, and if you pop Heat Blast during your Flamethrower, it'll cancel it. I'll show you right here. So we cast Flamethrower, Heat Blast, it'll stop your Flamethrower. Now, in terms of rotation, if you will, it's more of a priority system. When I'm PT DPSing, I like to use my shoulder cannons under my explosive fuel window. When I'm on my PT tank, I usually just send them. Heat Blast can be used off the global cooldown, so if that's glowing, send it. My priority system, I use a Rocket Punch always first, into Rail Shot, then our Firestorm. Again, Heat Blast can be used off the global cooldown, so we can use that just as soon as it pops. Don't feel bad about using Rapid Shots because it can proc your Ion Gas Cylinder, and it can also build a heat screen for you. Rocket Punch number 1, Rail Shot number 2, Firestorm number 3, Flame Burst number 4, Rapid Shots number 5. Heat Blast always. Alright, now we're going to be talking about our defensive cooldowns. Energy yield. Essentially, you don't die for 3 seconds when you have this legendary. Applies a stack of energy yield to you, increasing your armor by 40% and your damage done by 2% for 15 seconds. Whenever you take damage, an additional stack of energy yield is applied up to 5 times. In addition, you gain a stack of energy heal. Each stack heals you for 6% of your health. This legendary here used to be called Emergency Power. It was the 6.0 set bonus. So a lot of people shorthand this with EP. So for example, say I'm in a fight, I'm about to take a huge hit. I'd be like, healers, don't worry, I'm going to EP. We have that 3 seconds. Energy Shield, increased damage reduction by 25% for 15 seconds. Say you're going to be in a spot and you're going to be taking a pounding. Pop that. So when you read Explosive Fuel, increases range and tech critical hit chance by 25% for 15 seconds. You're thinking, Koosh, this is offensive cooldown. And I would say, hell yeah it is. I'm using that puppy in my opener. But not so fast. If we look at our passives, Explosive Fuel increases defense chance by 35% while active. Defense chance. Oh, it's only 22. Boom. 57%. What I like to do with Explosive Fuel is because it increases my defense, Oil Slick reduces the accuracy of melee and ranged on your enemies by 15%. So you pop that, you get your defense chance increase, you pop that, it lowers their accuracy. A great combination. Colto Overload. Activating this ability applies a health monitor that lasts up to 60 seconds, which triggers a Colto Overload when your health is reduced by 35% or less. If your health is already 35% or less, Colto Overload triggers immediately. Once triggered, Colto Overload goes on a cooldown for 3 minutes and rapidly heals you up to 35% of your max health for 8 seconds, but will not exceed 35% of your max health. I use this if I take a massive spike and I'm like, oh my god! My Adrenal is the Shield Adrenal. Pretty simple. Absorbs 30% of damage up to 84,261 damage for 15 seconds. Your med pack is your med pack. You pop it, it heals you, and then you heal for an additional 21,000 over 15 seconds. Well, that's the guide. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something. If you didn't, I'm sorry. I suck. In all seriousness, if anyone does have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out and contact me. I will try to respond as quick as I can. I kind of just wanted to cover the things that I thought were most important about PT Tank. And again, thank you all so much for watching and much love. Mwah, mwah, mwah.